This is the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the first chapter. A leper came to him, begging him, and kneeling, he said to him, "If you choose, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, and said to him, "I do choose, be made clean." Immediately the leprosy left him, and he was made clean. After sternly warning him, he sent him away at once, saying to him, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded as a testimony to them." But he went out and began to proclaim it freely and to spread the word, so that Jesus could no longer go into a town openly, but stayed out in the country, and people came to him from every quarter. The Gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. So I'm going to ask you to give your gut reaction to the first question of the day. Do you like surprises? So I'm guessing, truthfully, the answer to that question really is it depends on the situation. But we know life is full of surprises, some things that startle us, shock us, and catch us unaware and not prepared. And some of those do indeed bring us great joy. It could be a marriage proposal, a blessing or a gift all of a sudden, a bonus out of the blue, a sudden promotion, an unexpected visit or contact from someone we haven't heard from in a long time, a party thrown in our honor when we did not expect it. Some surprises, though, cause heartache and pain, like we go to the doctor for an x-ray and all of a sudden there's a malignancy there. Or a sudden loss of a job or a loved one, a loss of independence, or something that shakes us to the core. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we just simply don't know the way out. The path is very unclear and difficult. If I personally had to choose between surprising others and being surprised, I always want to be on the side of surprising others. Because after all, you have far more control in that scenario. What do you think Naaman preferred? If you think about his story. Naaman was the general from what we would refer to as modern-day Syria. And he led his army on many, many raids. And we know what a raid is. It's a surprise attack on your enemies. It's a surprise attack on the towns surrounding you. And that strategy and method worked very well. It resulted in many victories under Naaman's leadership. It brought him more power, more control, more authority. You get the sense that he was widely respected. But the story today is that Naaman had a problem. One day his body was invaded with leprosy and he could not shake it. And that probably came as a shock to his system when it appeared it was just the first of many surprises in the story. In Syria, he could not find a cure. No matter where he went, he could not find a cure for this leprosy. No one there seemed to know how to help him. And then one day, a glimmer of hope is offered from an unexpected source. Remember who that is? It's this Israelite servant girl, slave girl, whose town had been raided at some point. She had been taken from her homeland in Israel. She had been forced to be a servant. And you think about her situation, how do you think she thought of surprises? Despite her tough situation, she doesn't clam up. She doesn't show hostility. What she does is serve as a witness. She says, if only Naaman could see the prophet in Israel. She's referring to Elisha. And she offers this suggestion, which for someone from Syria, a Gentile, would be a completely out-of-the-box suggestion. But Naaman is very, very interested that there may be a possibility. So Naaman tells his king, the king of Syria, about this possible help in Israel. The king writes a diplomatic letter, piles on a whole bunch of gifts to give to the king, a gesture of goodwill. And how does the king of Israel receive it? He's scared to death. He thinks that this is a trick. He thinks he's about to be ambushed and attacked, and he's going crazy in fear. And it's in that moment that Elisha sends a note saying, hey, king, send him to my house. Send him to my house. So Naaman gets this word, and he heads to Elisha's house. He goes, and he is treated in an incredibly surprising way. And let's just say that this is the head of the army. If you imagine the head of a cabinet member here in the United States, you would tend to think that they're going to be treated kind of extra special. And Naaman, there's the sense that he expected to be treated in a certain way. He expected that he was going to get a lot of personal attention. He expected that there was going to be a buzz of activity and concern to help him. He was expecting a lot of hands-on care being shown to him. But Elisha doesn't even take the time to get off his couch. Doesn't even take the time to go to the door. Doesn't even take the time to look Naaman in the eye. The doorbell rings. Elisha stays put, sends a messenger to the door, says, just tell Naaman, go down to the Jordan River, tell him to hop in there, immerse himself 7 times. He'll be restored and clean. Naaman blew a gasket. I don't know. I've blown a gasket in life once or twice. I'm guessing everyone here has done that at once or twice. But what we have to see is Naaman's ego is absolutely wounded. It's taken a bruise. His pride is also wounded. And many of us can understand how that feels. When our pride gets in the way, when our ego is wounded, it feels horrible. And Naaman is very angry all of a sudden at Elisha, and he just views this solution as utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. And he starts to vent, starts to, in a sense, insult Elisha. He starts to insult Israel. You get the sense of he's insulting this dumpy, horrible Jordan River, saying, I should have just stayed up in Syria. I could have done that. Our rivers are better up there. And it seems to me that as he was looking at his situation, which he seemed to think was so desperate, and it probably was, he was expecting an extraordinary solution with incredible effort, sweat and intensity, vigilant. I almost picture like a week-long surgery. He was expecting that kind of effort was going to be involved in curing him. And what he found was what was being proposed just seemed far too simple, far too ordinary. Immerse yourselves 7 times in this river. And what we should see is Naaman doesn't come to his senses on his own. In fact, what's interesting is Elisha is absolutely, he's not even in view. He's in his house this entire story. He doesn't come outdoors to help. Yet again, it's the simple witness of the servants. And his servants, Naaman's servants approach him. And what do they say is, why not give it a try? Why not give it a try? Just go down and try it. See what happens. And it's as if a light bulb went off. Because all of a sudden, Naaman does listen. He goes to that river 7 times. He immerses himself. And it says he's restored, clean, made whole again. And what we have to see is it's not by some extraordinary superhuman effort. It's by the simple obedient actions where God does wonders. And I think that's one of the things we forget. We so often think it takes extraordinary human effort on our part to become a follower of God, but it's often the simple obedient actions where God does wonders in our lives. When all is said and done, and what verse 15, which we didn't read today, I think is important to include today. After this, Naaman goes back to Elisha's house, knocks on the door, does get to greet him eye to eye, and he says something that probably didn't surprise Elisha one bit. He said to Elisha, looked him in the eye and says, I truly know there is no other God like the God of Israel. And a few things I think we have to see and comment on today that shouldn't surprise us, but chief among them is it takes a whole community of people to bring someone to the faith, to nurture them along, to help guide them. And I so often forget about the witness of that slave girl. But she gets the ball rolling. That slave girl had close proximity to Naaman. She saw his situation better than anyone else, And she pointed the way, saying, there is a place, there is a person you can go to in Israel. So go. And it's important for us in our generation to be people, to reach out to those in our midst, to say, hey, I know a place in a community where your heart and your spirit can be nurtured. Come and be a part of that. We need to be a community like what we saw in the story today that challenges people. You know, this was a challenging, they challenged Naaman to the core. And we need people who challenge our assumptions, who help us think anew about the world around us and see the world from God's perspective. And I think the thing I appreciate is Naaman was challenged, in a sense, to be more humble than he was at the beginning of this story. And all of us, I think, need that challenge, because the world is blessed when we serve with humility and generosity. And we need to be people who, like Naaman's military servants, who say, give it a try. Give it a try. You know, they're not coercing him. They're just suggesting to him, sort of opening a door, saying, give it a whirl. Test the faith. Test the faith. See what it does in your life. Immerse yourself in it 7 times. And how many days in a week are there? 7. And I love that image of this story. It's a simple reminder to me, to you, is that, in a sense, 7 times a week we are to immerse ourselves in remembering who we are. We are the children of God, and I don't think that means we have to do, every day has to be an extraordinary, superhuman effort to follow. I think what it means is every day we realize that we're on a daily walk with God. And it means each day when we rise, we need to say, I'm a child of God, I'm ready to serve. And it might mean simple things we need to pay attention to 7 times a week. It might mean we just pray, make sure we pray at every meal, giving thanks to God for what's been set before us. It might mean before we go to bed, we simply say, God, I commit my life into your hands. I rest now and help me rise tomorrow to serve you. It might mean we simply become more focused on saying, God, one person in this coming day needs my care, and help me to seize that opportunity. And it might mean we just simply need to look for God's goodness far more often. To Naaman's credit, he ultimately listened, and his life was a surprising change. I think when you and I, when we listen, we ultimately will realize when we listen and obey, there will be surprising results in our life, and it'll be a profound witness to others. Amen.